Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to another teaser video for the MEF Connects Rich Communications virtual event. To remind you, this event takes place over 3 days from September 29th to October 1st. And the aim is to shine a spotlight on the revolution promised by the rich messaging platforms such as RCS, WhatsApp, iMessage and others. Now, we tend to think about rich messaging as something that happens only on smartphones, but it's not the whole story. In fact, there's a potential to host rich messaging on a whole range of new device types, especially as we move into the 5G era. So today I'm delighted to be joined by someone who knows a bit about this and who is also one of the NES event's official sponsors. And that's Doug Makishima, who's the CSMO of Summit Tech. So Doug, thanks for joining us. But Doug, what new device types are we talking about here?
So the first focus area, of course, for any new mobile communication services is the phone, is the device itself. But keep in mind, most people also have an iPad or a tablet or a secondary device, maybe a second phone or a third phone even. Also wearables now with smartwatches. And think about with this drive towards the digital transformation finally getting kickstarted, ironically and unfortunately, by COVID and stay at home. But things are becoming more virtual, and people are finally making the jump to e-commerce. So that leads to things like virtualization, VR 360 streaming for things like esports, events, concerts. And again, you think about RCS in terms of messaging, actual text messages, or with now new media types with images, but RCS also has a thing called enriched calling, which allows you to do basically voice calls as well as video calls and video chats. So that can be used not only for the typical, FaceTime type call that we all use these messaging apps for, but it could be used in a retail or e-tail situation where you're trying to provide better customer service or a better customer experience in terms of the virtual experience for the products that are on offer.
In the case, let's take the example of VR headset, for example. What kind of real life scenarios could you see that being used for?
Well, the classic example is in e-commerce. So you can have, for example, I mentioned it, a fashion show. Now that can be a produced, highly polished show with a producer and an announcer or a host. But you can imagine also, in the age of the dying shopping malls, right? These retailers are trying to innovate and trying to make use of the brick and mortar space they have. So you can have a lot of these digital influencers that are very active on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat. They could come in and do an impromptu photo shoot or a fashion show or just talk about products, and it can be much more engaging, immersive VR experience, VR 360 streamed, just like you can do on some of these platforms like Go Live on Facebook or on Instagram. It's live, but it can also be archived. And then the transactional experience. So of course, the whole aim is to get people to buy the brands to buy their wares and their clothing. So you want to be able to add things to your cart and check out and do have the whole transaction flow be embedded in the shopping experience. Same with esports. You want the brands can advertise products. The fans can buy things online, as they're watching the sporting event or the auto race.
And so, thinking of the interface as far as consumers are concerned, most people will be aware of what you can do with a rich messaging app when it's on a smartphone. How will the experience look inside a kiosk or on a VR headset?
Well, again, thanks for bringing up the topic of user experience. We have quite a bit of innovation here, and I'll get to that in a second. But you just mentioned kiosks. That's another area where it's not intuitive. They're usually pretty unwieldy to deploy and to manage. So bringing RCS, if you RCS enable one of these kiosks, it's quite easy. It's just it's the same chatbot that the brand is using to reach out to their consumers that are using smartphones, but now it's just on a kiosk. And you maybe add a few things like print a receipt or scan a QR code or a few changes to the user interface, but the basic content and the chatbot itself remains unchanged. And then the kiosk itself is vastly simplified because all it has to be is glass, large display area running, Android or something, simple that can display, the RCS messages. But in terms of user experience, think about esports. So, and this actually does apply to the smartphone as well. But when you have a tablet, a kiosk, or you have other or a VR headset, of course, the experience changes, either larger screens or a more immersive 360 experience in terms of the VR, and then picture-in-picture and windows and things that you can put on when you have more screen real estate or virtual real estate and the virtual experience. So we have a publishing and event moderation and coordination production platform called Audience. And that allows operators and brands to produce these events, whether an e-commerce boutique or esports or a massive concert or internal corporate event, a corporate meeting. Again, most of the large corporations here in Silicon Valley are in work from home mode, and I think will be for the foreseeable future. Some of them are actually going to permanent option of working remotely. So think about just company meetings.
Is one of the advantages of RCS not just that it supplies a good interface for people, but also that you can go to market quicker because you're buying a pre-existing solution rather than having to build your own?
Well, again, I mean, that is the revolution that's promised by RCS, right? I mean, RCS, don't forget, is an operator service. It's a carrier service like voice and SMS texting. Think about it as SMS 2.0 or 3.0. It'll just be there. It'll be on the phone. So there's nothing to install. There's nothing to configure. It just comes standard. So there's a certain segment of the population that is still not very comfortable using smartphones or smart devices. And for those people, it's fantastic because it's just built in. It's just part of the device, part of the experience. Once it's standardized and ubiquitous, it makes it far easier to develop for. And in terms of the tools, they're all very standardized. There's already many SDKs and platforms for development. And in the case of Symantec, we provide a chatbot builder that's very easy to use. It's drag and drop. It's graphical. Anybody can build a chatbot with this platform and publish it for an e-commerce campaign or for some kind of line of business, internal enterprise use case, or even for IoT. And that's another device type, by the way, I haven't mentioned is, we provide an RCS SDK for IoT devices, which can include many aspects of connected living. So the connected home, which is home automation and home security, connected car, so in vehicle, which is again another use case, right? Most cars these days have a piece of glass now, smart glass in the car. It's getting larger and larger, especially if you have a Tesla. It's like you have a big screen in your car. But how do you utilize that real estate and the microphone and the audio that's already built into the car? Well, bringing RCS functionality there as well as a secondary or tertiary device makes sense. So all of these devices are connected, and it's not just the smartphone that can be powered by RCS.
Well, it's an interesting area, and it's one that's I'm sure we'll be talking about more in the future. And we'll certainly be talking about it at the event in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll look forward to your session then. And Doug, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you soon.